Ahoy hoy everyone in the YouTube modeling community, it's Lazy Eyed Modeler here. We're back from Salt Lake City from the GSL 26 competition, the Great Salt Lake City Model Car Championship. In my last video, or at least I think it was my last video, I did mention that we were heading that way. My friend Bill and I packed up on April 23rd, and we headed for Salt Lake. And I had a vision of filming, the trip and whatnot. But since I was the driver, and the camera and the camcorder were packed in a box in the back seat, really didn't do too much of that. Not the way I had envisioned it. It got a little bit at the Gilmore Museum, sort of going in and then leaving, but I don't think I actually took any pictures at the Gilmore Museum, which there's the fancy new hat I got while I was there. Let me just say, if you get to Michigan, go to Hickory Corners and check out the Gilmore Museum, but get there at 9, expect to spend all day there. I'll get back to that in a minute. Actually, the first day of traveling, we went from from my home here in Penetanguishene, Ontario. I picked up Bill in Toronto, or North York, which is part of Toronto now, I believe. Anyway, and then we stayed overnight in Kalamazoo, and then we headed up to the Gilmore Museum. Now, both Bill and I, when we go to a museum, we're both the type that want to read every placard on every exhibit, and when you only plan on spending 3 hours there, you can't really do that. Ended up kind of dragging Bill through. We did most of the main museum. I ended up kind of dragging Bill through the Franklin exhibit so we could go to the Model A Museum, and then we did the Cadillac Museum, and by the time we did that, our time was almost up. We went to the little diner they have on site and had our lunch there, and then left a whole bunch of buildings worth of cars unexplored because we had to hit the road. If you ever do go there, plan on spending all day there. Even if you don't read all the placards, to see all the cars and admire them, you need pretty much the whole day. But it's well worth the trip, so if you're ever in Michigan, plan to do that. We left there. We got past Chicago. We stayed in Coralville, or Iowa City. They're kind of one's close to the other. That was our second night. Our third night we stayed in Sidney, Nebraska. Now when we stopped in Iowa City / Coralville, it was 78 degrees. When we stopped in Sidney, Nebraska, I had to put my winter coat on to fill up, because between the temperature, which was, and I'm trying to convert on the fly here because I'm used to Celsius, it was 4 degrees Celsius, I don't know, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. With the wind that was blowing, I had my winter coat on to fill the car up with gas, and it was interesting. And then the next day we made it from Sidney, Nebraska into Salt Lake City. Some people would find that drive terribly boring. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved going across the prairies. I mean, I know there were people that say, well, if you see the things properly, you have to take the back roads and whatever else, but for time's sake we took the interstates, and I still loved it. Loved the prairies. Years ago people told us driving across the Canadian prairies, oh, you'll be bored to death. I loved it then. Going across the American prairies and whatnot, through Iowa and then Nebraska and so forth into Wyoming. I love the whole trip. I really did. I mean, my rear end got rather numb, but I didn't get bored. I enjoyed it. I mean, we're busy talking, we're busy listening to music, and if you ever uh, want interesting radio program, especially Canadians, on Facebook, check out the Road Les Traveled, done by Les Merle. So the Road LES Traveled. He does a radio podcast every Wednesday, and I downloaded quite a number of them, and we had Les traveling with us for a good part of the trip. Anyway, got to Salt Lake City. We managed to get to the Sheraton okay, just one slight mistake, and we fixed that real quick. We got the car parked and stayed there for 4 days. We walked to whatever restaurants. Um, we really enjoyed the championship. We enjoyed the fact it was over 4 days. There were a lot of seminars that we took. Went to Daryl Starbird, a famous customizer. If you've ever heard of the Predicta, you would know who he is. He was a consultant to Monogram Models during the early 60s. He was there in person to do a presentation. That was just fascinating. Totally enjoyed that. Did a presentation on the well, of course, the museum, the model car museum. We heard about the current state of affairs with that. There was a presentation on 3D printing, which was fascinating. I mean, I kind of drifted at points because I didn't quite grasp everything. But the thing I did grasp, and I want to thank Chris Sobak, I believe is his name. He did a presentation of how you actually do the 3D drawing and whatnot. Now, he was using a professional program with at least the concept. I mean, you just start off with basic shapes, and then you get the program to extrude, or I didn't bring my notes out here, but like it was one of those things where I thought, oh, hey, I could actually do that. And for the last few years, when people talk about 3D printing and drawing and stuff, it's like, oh, I'll never do that. There's no way. But uh, I felt I could do that. So anyway, a lot of interesting seminars, and one thing I liked about the fact it was a 4-day show was that you got a chance to talk to people. NNL East or any of the NNLs, not a knock against them or anything. I love them, but it's usually rush, rush, rush. Go put your models on the table, go shop, go look at the models in the contest room. Oh, hi, Sam, see you later. Hi Virgil, hi whoever. Yeah, good to see you. And you don't really. Oh, look at all the hand waving. Sorry, you don't really get to visit with people. Whereas this chance got to talk to people. Got to talk to people that I've read their articles in magazines and stuff, and it was more than just a 30-second to 2-minute hi, how are you? I'm Peter, nice to meet you, and gone. Got to ask them about stuff, their builds, and what they recommend, and just general stuff like that. It was great that way. It was really great that way. Not to mention having a chance to talk to fellow YouTubers like Lee Hartman. It was great to meet you, Lee. Dustin from Hinterland Customs. We got to talk for quite a bit, and he got to talk to him about something that had me curious, and he explained things to me, and I appreciate that, Dustin. Thank you very much. Tyler from Dragon Speed Shop. He was actually involved in the GSL, doing some of the audio-visual stuff and whatnot. He's already posted here on YouTube some of the coverage from GSL. I think he lives in the area, so it's much easier for him. Anyway, it was great to meet you, Tyler. And there was another fella. What's his name? He rides a bike a lot. Oh yeah, Chris Chapman. Sorry, Chris, just teasing. It was great to meet Chris Chapman. I mean, he's not going to like this, but he's an icon here in YouTube. He's helped so many people with building, especially using acrylics and whatnot. It was great to meet Chris and have a chance to talk to him. what can I say? I was hoping to meet him there, and I was really happy to meet Chris and chat with him a bit. Anyway, um, so that's that. I'm trying to remember stuff on the fly here. I didn't make notes, which is always a mistake, but there were some awesome builds on the tables. A lot of scratch built stuff, or mainly scratch built. Just make your mouth water. Um, the awards on Sunday morning were quite interesting. Um, some real tight competition for the best of show, and congratulations to Don Baines. There again, no notes, but he did a big rig model, I think mainly from scratch. Probably have it in my pictures. If you check out Dragon Speed Shop's coverage, he probably has it, and it's probably on Facebook too. A great build. In competition also was Dirk Joseph with a top fuel drag bike. Wow, you had to see that to believe it. It was fantastic. So lots of great builds there. Really enjoyed that. Not the numbers that you see at many NNLs, but just some great builds. Um, and of course, the big thing for me was going to the International Model Car Museum in Sandy, Utah, which I guess is a suburb of Salt Lake. It was fascinating. I loved it. I'm going to put coverage together here. You've probably, if you're on Facebook, you've probably seen Chris's coverage of the museum. I'll try to piece the stuff I did together. There's like 20 people going. It's a small space. It's like 1,000 square feet, and most of it's taken up by display. So you try to pack 20 people in there to look around. It's a challenge trying to take pictures and film and whatnot. Um, it was great for the older guys who have kept with the hobby and have followed the hobby over the years. Don Emmons, he wrote in a lot of the early model car magazines. There is a display with his stuff, and he was there. Um, talking to people about the models he built, the models that are on display there and whatnot. It was just totally cool. I tried to get a picture of him, but every time I tried to get a picture of him near the display, another guy walked backwards into me, so I don't know if I ever got a picture. I haven't looked at my pictures yet. I haven't looked at the camcorder footage yet. Um, so I'm not sure what I've got. Like I say, I'll try to piece stuff together. It might be a couple different um, videos covering what I can. We'll see. We'll work on that in the next few days. So last Sunday, so a week ago today, after the awards ceremony and the breakfast, packed up my models and we hit the road again. We only went as far as Laramie the first day because we weren't leaving till 11:30, and I, didn't want to spend, we're getting older and don't want to spend hours and hours on the road, so that's why we split it up. The trip could have been a lot quicker, but why? Bill and I retired, and we didn't have to rush back for anything, so we just took our time. So the first day we stopped at Laramie. The second day was Coralville, um, not Coralville, Urbandale, which is part of Des Moines, Iowa. And then the third day we stopped in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And the next morning we went to Model Cave. Gee, thanks, Papa Dan. Help us spend more money. Well, not only Papa Dan, but Pat Redmond, who has a channel here. He also recommended them, and we stopped in there and spent more money. And then when we got across the border, we stopped in Windsor, Ontario to visit with our friend Pat Redmond, and we had a nice visit with him. Had to cut it short though, because at the point we left there it was 3 o'clock, and I still had a long way to drive. Had to drop Bill off in Toronto and then head home. So I got home, I forget now, I think it was about 8:30 on Wednesday night. And you would think by then, the next day I'd be, doing my videos and this chat and everything. It's like, no. Zombieland. I guess, you know, you managed to stay up and going for the amount of time of the trip. But once my brain knew I was home and safe and everything else, it's like it just shut down, and I kind of just wandered aimlessly around the house and got a little unpacking done here and a little done there. But it's taken me like 3 days to feel half human again. So the last thing I'm going to do, I can't show everything I got during the course of the trip, but I'll show you some stuff that we got, and that'll be it. So one of the first things I'll show is a couple of the things I got from the auction. On the Saturday night, there was an auction to help raise money for the International Model Car Museum. I picked this up, which is an interesting kit. It's the original 48 Ford kit. This was an IMC kit, which you'll recognize IMC if you're following Chris Cortell and building that Volkswagen. This is the 48 Ford convertible. This is in the tester's packaging, and I have to share something that I thought was funny. Of course, yes, 3 engine options were available in 1948. A straight 6, I'm not so sure about that, but a straight 6, the popular flathead V8, and a whopping 427 cubic inch powerhouse. Now, who here believes they had a 427 cubic inch motor available in 1948? Put your hands up. Ah, so I don't know who wrote that, but they don't know the history of cars too well. And the other thing I got at auction, which is a fairly common kit, but we picked this Hogan's Heroes Jeep up. I have some nice resin tires for it, so it'll look a little better than what comes in the kit. So those are 2 things I picked up at auction. I picked up a couple other things there, but I can't quite show it. In the vendor's room on Saturday morning, somebody was blowing out seal kits for $10 a piece. So I picked up 2 of these, mainly for parts kits, because I want to do a wagon with the lowered suspension that this has. So they're handy to have, and I mean, they're great kits. And we also picked up a couple of the Model A Ford kits for $10 a piece. The 31 sedan kits, great parts sources as well. Something else I forgot to mention is that if you registered, you could get certain items. There was this kit, which is the AMT 23 delivery van. This is the previous incarnation. It's out right now, I think, with the Coca-Cola livery, but this one has Nestle decals in it. But I won't be opening this because it has the GSL label on it, so this is more of, I don't consider myself a collector, but this will be kind of a collector's item for me. And as everything falls over, another thing I picked up at the vendor's market was Lee Hartman is producing a new magazine called Classic Truck Modeler. And I picked these 2 issues up. They're the first 2 issues he's done. I haven't had a chance to totally read them, but I have looked through them. Great work, Lee. If anybody's interested, I think you can find this on Facebook, or maybe you can message Lee here on YouTube, and he can get the information to you about picking these up. And then at Model Cave, I picked this up for the Camaro build, and yes, if you've been paying attention, I did pick a couple up at a hobby show, the Brands Hatch flea market earlier, but I really wanted the open headlight version like this, so I picked this up, and probably the others will be going back to the flea market at some point. And I'm Batman. The Mobius Models Batman kit, which is part of a series from the 1966 TV show of Batman. You can see here on the back that they're doing a whole bunch of them. They're not all out yet, but I think I'm suddenly hooked and will be picking those up because I was a big fan of the show. Uh, I think that covers all the basics of the great adventure to Salt Lake City. I really enjoyed it. Bill really enjoyed it. We had a really good time. If you can go, I would suggest you try to go sometime, especially just to get to see the well, not just for the museum, but that was a big reason for me going, and I think anybody else would enjoy it too. So this is already 20 minutes, and I guess that's enough of me palavering. I'll try to stitch together my coverage of it over the next few days and look for that. All right, thanks for listening to all my yakking, and we'll talk to you later. Bye now.